Hello and welcome to lesson 3 of How to Write Online. This is how to write a variety of content, and I'm going to teach you today how to write blogs and how-to articles and press releases and product reviews and fiction. Okay, just a basic overview. There's a lot of this you're going to have to learn as you go. Okay, but this is just the basics to get you started so you'll be able to write some content. All right. All right. Let's start with the blog. Now you may hear clients ask if you can write PBNs. Okay, this is PBN. All right, it stands for Public Blog Network or Private Blog Network. All right, and it's basically just a collection of articles. And these articles are all on the same niche, on the same topic, and many of them have keywords inserted into them and they're trying to sell a certain product or trying to promote a specific business. All right, your blog article is your most basic, your most common kind of article you're going to be writing. All right, this is informational and it's conversational and it's personable and it's readable. You're going to follow the same framework that we taught in the last lesson, which is your title or your heading, then your introduction, your main points with paragraphs in between your points, and your conclusion. That's how you write a blog article. All right? Remember to keep it personal, keep it light, and keep it really readable and accessible. Your sentences should flow from one to the other. There shouldn't be a lot of stopping and starting. It should just be very conversational style as much as possible. It should also be informative. You should be telling people something that maybe they can't find out for themselves too easily, or something they don't already know. All right? You want to give them solid information. Okay, let's say you're writing on medical insurance. So you're covering in your blog article maybe your personal experience with Medicare. And you're talking about the pros and cons and how this medical insurance can help them. All right, every time you're writing a blog, you're relating it to the reader. Maybe you're relating it with a personal account. Maybe you're relating it with how it can help them. You don't know what their problem is, but many times you are introducing a problem and you're telling them how that insurance can fix it, how whatever it is you're writing about can fix their problem, okay? Whether you're writing about plumbing or roofing, whatever it is, you're addressing a problem, you're showing how it can be resolved with this product or this service or this business, okay? So a blog is very general. A blog is sometimes a how-to article. Sometimes it's a personal account. The blog is simply just it's just a general term for the kind of content you'll be writing. And some of this will be in first person, some of it will be in third person. What I mean by that is first person says I want to tell you about this. I want to show you what this can do. I want to tell you something that happened to me. Now third person is, speaking about a next person. So you're you're writing in such a style that you're speaking about someone or something, and you're writing like, this person could use such and such product, or that person could use it, and you're not you're not speaking directly to the reader, okay? You're speaking about a third person. That's why it's called the third person. Now, the second person perspective is used commonly in blog articles as well, and that means you're speaking directly to the reader. You're saying, you need this. This is something I want to tell you. And sometimes it's a back and forth sort of between first person and second person, but it's directed to the reader, okay? So first person is I, second person is you, third person is just a general, non-specific person usually. It's not talking directly to the reader, so it's general information. That's the tone, okay? This person perspective is just kind of the tone, the way you're writing, the style of writing. You do need to watch your tone and your topic. Make sure you're writing in such a way that you're not talking down to your reader and you are giving them information that will be valuable to them, and you're not using words that your audience might not know. You got to remember to write for your audience, okay? Let's talk next about how-to articles, okay? These are informational. These will tell you about something, how to do something, why you might need something. Okay, so they introduce a problem generally, as a blog article may as well, and they tell you the solution. And step by step, a how-to article has a process and a step-by-step framework to it. So if you're going to teach someone how to how to put on a new roof, how to take off their old roof, put on a new roof, you're going to go through the steps in a how-to article. Okay, you're going to say step 1, you got to see if you need a roof. You have to assess it. Step 2, you have to take off your old roof. Step 3, you have to prepare the top of the building for your new roof. Step 4, you put on the new roof. Step 5, you inspect it, you make sure everything's good. Okay, just a basic, that's just a basic outline of how it might go. And for all those steps, you're going to write a couple paragraphs and fill it out. Okay, your articles could be, 500 words, they could be 1,000 words, could be 2,000 words. This is up to your client. Listen to your client about how he wants the articles written, what kind of articles they want, and how long the articles should be. Okay? Press releases are informational news type articles. Okay? These are very impersonal. You're not going to use you or I or probably even them a lot of times. You want to keep it as informal as possible. And you're giving a lot of information. It's full of content and information. There's no fluff in a press release. So it's really hard sometimes to fill out the word requirement for a press release. All right. There's a specific format for a press release. I would encourage you to look that up, and I'm going to tell you what it is, but I would encourage you to go look at a press release before you write one and kind of have that format in place so you know what you're writing. Okay, so a press release has a title. It can be a pretty lengthy title, sometimes 15, 20 words long, sometimes 2 lines long for that first title, and then it has a second title which can be equally as long. The second title basically rephrases the first title or gives new information but still on the same topic. Okay, so let's say you're writing a press release on a Google search engine optimization update. So your first title could be Google releases new SEO update. Your second title could be there's a new update for SEO from Google. It's basically a paraphrase. Didn't tell you new information, but you could go that way with it. And then after your 2 titles, you're going to have a location and a date. Okay, like San Antonio, Texas, May 29, 2019, okay? And then you'll have a dash right after your date, and you'll start your first paragraph and go straight through there. A lot of times press releases will not have subheading breaks. You may want to talk to your client about whether they want to have subheading breaks in a press release, okay? A news story is very similar. If you're doing a news story article for your client, then you may need to have well, you obviously need a title, but you may also need to do a time and a date as well, a location and a date, I'm sorry. Okay, so a title, location, and date. And once again, a news story would be informational. It would not be personal. It would not be personable. Okay, so it'll still be easy to read. It needs to be very readable, and the paragraphs and the sentences should flow one to another, from one to the next one, okay? But you're going to be very informal. You won't say you or I if you're doing a news story or a press release, okay? Anything else you could, but those you don't. You keep your tone very formal, okay? And that makes it seem more honest, more trustworthy. Okay, next is a product review. A lot of what you're writing will be product reviews, at least in my experience, okay? Product reviews are, you're selling a product usually, and many times it will be a product you haven't used and you may not know much about. So do your research, look at other product reviews, try to be honest as much as possible. Okay, your readers will see through dishonesty and made up claims many times. So be careful about that, because that reflects bad on your client. It reflects bad on whoever their boss is. All right, when you do a product review, you'll usually be talking about pros and cons. All right, now you're typically selling a product for the client, and I know this is weird, but usually a client will ask you to write a product review for the product they're selling, and it's a product you haven't used. That is a really weird way to do a product review, but that's what a lot of the work is. So You're going to have to look up information about it. You're going to have to be as honest as you can. Say some pros, say some cons. You would be surprised how your client will let you be honest about the product and say some things that are shortcomings and disadvantages for it. But that actually helps the product review look more honest, and it looks like you have used it and tried it and you're being forthcoming about what its shortcomings are. Okay, so it's good to have both the pros and the cons, and that can be your bullet point list. You want to have the bullet point list in there in a product review every time. A product should have bullet points for pros and for cons. That just looks really attractive, and it tracks well on Google. It will help the SEO. All right, so you want to make sure you're having your bullet point lists in there. You want to have entire sections devoted to pros and cons. You want to tell how to use the product, why someone might need the product. All right, there's a lot you could get into. I would say a good way to start out with your product reviews, if you don't know much about how to do one, is to look at another example. And a lot of times your clients will give you examples of product reviews when they ask you to write one and say, I want something similar to this, okay? Because they may already have product reviews for that, and they want some more. They want to put them up on news sites and just show that there's a lot of people reviewing this product. All right, try to be as honest as you can, once again, because that will show through in your writing. It will make it more believable and more readable, and it will track better on Google. It'll help with the SEO if you can just be honest about what the product is. You know, you can look on Amazon and other places for product reviews, get some information about it. Try to be as informative as you can. A product review should have tons of information. It should not be a bunch of fluff. And that is true of all the writing you do. You want to make sure there's not a bunch of fluff and a bunch of extra sentences and just sentences that paraphrase other sentences. Every sentence should have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, get rid of it. All right? Every sentence should give some information, something that another sentence doesn't say. All right? And a product review should be very informative, and you should have a conclusion. You should have a final decision on the product. Maybe you're recommending the product at the end. Maybe you're saying this product is good for this kind of person. All right, you want your conclusion to be really strong in the product review. You don't want the entire product review to be very salesy, very pro that product to such a point that it looks like just blatant salesmanship. You want to seem like you're being honest and forthright with the reader, so you don't want to just constantly promote the product and show like and pretend like there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, you do want to find a few little things wrong with it. If you're writing for a client who wants you to help sell that product, then keep your cons, your disadvantages for that product or service to a minimum. Okay, be honest, have those cons there, but don't make that the main focus point. Don't talk about the disadvantages of the product all through your review. You want to keep it kind of positive, but not overly positive, not gushingly positive. Not like you are part of the cult that sells this product that will bring people eternal life. Okay, that's not what you want. Okay, people will see through that. It won't look authentic, and your client will like it. All right, next up we have fiction. All right, these are fun to write. People love to write fiction, but you probably won't find a lot of work that wants you to write short stories, novels, whatever, poetry. You're not going to find much poetry jobs, all right? But there is some of that out there. You ought to know how to do it, okay? You have to be very careful when you're writing fiction about your tone. You want to keep your tone consistent. If you want your story to be humorous, keep it humorous throughout. Keep it humorous throughout. And if you want it to be in first person, told like a personal story, then you need to keep that same tone throughout. If you start with, I want to tell you the story, I want to tell you what happened to me, keep that same perspective, that first person perspective all the way through. If you shift tones to a third person, then that doesn't look very good. It's inconsistent, and it takes the reader out of the story, okay? A lot of the work that is fiction that you will do is personal accounts. So maybe your client will want you to write a personal account about something that happened to you, and this may be something that did not happen to you personally, and so you have to write it as fiction. You're writing maybe a personal experience with a product or a service, and so you're writing, this is what happened. to me, and you can find examples of this online, and you want to keep your tone consistent. Again, be as honest as you can, talk about some shortcomings of the product or service, okay? That kind of fits into the fiction, but it also fits into product review and blogs and all that. A lot of these things kind of filter over into each other and run over a little bit. With the fiction, you want to be careful that you don't just go off on too many tangents and just get too way out there with it. You're ultimately trying to appeal to the reader. So think of your reader, think of what they would want to read, okay? You may have things that you want to get across, ideas you want to talk about, philosophies that are important to you. Remember that if you are writing fiction for a client, you are writing to sell that. And so you want to be aware of who your audience is, what their education level is, what words they might understand and might not understand. You want to think about what their preferences are, what their religious background is. All these things factor into what kind of information you want to give in your fiction. And you want to apply that to your nonfiction writing as well, your product reviews and your blogs and your how-to articles, your press releases. Think about your reader, what kind of level they're at educationally, and what kind of background they have, what area of the country they're in. As you write, remember that there are different grammar rules, different spelling rules for different parts of the world. Okay, so if you are writing for an Australian client, you will use different grammar rules and different spelling than you would for an American client or even for an English client. So like one big difference between the Australian content and everything else is the Australian ones, they don't usually use Z's in the middle of words. So authorization and focalization will use an S instead of a Z there, and you have to be careful about that. Other than that, the Australian grammar rules pretty much follow the British ones. And if you're using Microsoft Word, you can change the grammar style to American English, British English, Australian English, whatever you use. I use those three countries as an example because those are the main ones I write for, and I find that's where most of the work is coming from. So you can do that in Microsoft Word, change the spelling and grammar rules so it will check for mistakes in that particular kind of English language style. But don't trust the grammar checker to find everything. Like it won't check that Z thing I just told you about. Okay, it's not going to look for that. You're going to have to look for that yourself manually. There may be other word and writing programs you can use that will check for those sorts of things. So you can kind of look for those on your own, but I find Microsoft Word works pretty well, catches most things, but you always want to read through it yourself and make sure everything looks good and lines up with what your client wants.